Welcome everyone to this morning's social system mapping OnRamp system for June 13th, 2022, where we will have the lovely Laura Kaestele sharing her CircleWise map in a moment. Your hosts today, if you're not familiar with us, are me, Christine Capra, co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum, and my partner in lots of crime types of things, not really, but our technical producer is Kara Martner. And if you have any technical issues, go ahead and ping her. She'll help you out. So for those of you who are new to this, just to let you know what this is, and we'll be doing introductions in the chat in a moment. But this is really a vision about a possibility. So we who make social system maps believe that social system mapping can help change networks, become self-organizing more quickly and more wisely, and can help any kind of systemic transformation effort be more effective. And so really this is about that that vision and us leaning into that possibility and figuring out how to make that a reality. It's also a learning opportunity. Today is mostly learning from Laura about her map. But in general, we have these sessions just about every Monday morning of the month. And often it's more of a co-learning opportunity. So it's an opportunity for you to learn about social system mapping and sometimes the theories that inform our belief in the possibility and that help us design our social system maps, and that also the theories that we use for sense making with our maps. But it's also about lived experience. And so while there's learning coming from the experienced mappers in the group, there's also learning coming from the new members of the group who bring new perspectives and have their own experience about all this work that we're doing. So it's a learning opportunity. It's also a community of practice and a community of field building. So we come together to learn how to use our social system maps for change, for the better. And that includes people who are both active mappers, sort of doing the technical work and the design work and the setup work, as well as people who are working within communities to help communities sense make with their maps and learn how to leverage their maps and get the most out of them. So whether you're making a map or part of the broader context, or even just inspired to help mappers learn how to do this well, we invite you to be part of that, of the community. So social system mapping is core, like I just said, but we're not all mappers. Okay, so for today's agenda, I'm going to do intros in the chat in a moment, and then I'm going to hand it over to Laura, and Laura is going to walk you through social system map that she made, and then we'll have her pause partway through the hour, and then she'll take questions and answers, and we'll just sort of clarify whatever questions you have. And then we always do an optional post-session half hour. So the formal session is designed to be an hour long. We will pause no matter what's going on. I will sort of stop us at about 2 minutes to the hour, and we have a little goodbye ritual. We'll do our goodbye ritual, and then anybody who has some more time and more questions, or just wants to hear what else emerges from people, is invited to just stay on after we do the goodbye ritual. So that's and you don't have to stay on for the whole half hour. You can stay on for 5 minutes and decide we're not saying anything that's interesting to you and just go on your way, whatever. But we'll do the formal closing at the top, and then you're free to stick around for however long you want after that. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves in the chat. And for starters, let's have you put your name, pronoun, and location, as much of that as you are willing to share with us. Anything that I say we're going to do together ever in this context is absolutely optional. It's an invitation. It's not a requirement. So if there's parts you don't want to put, don't. If there's breakouts we're doing and you don't want to go in a breakout, let us know, etc. There are no commands in this context, even though sometimes I'm talking fast and abruptly and it might sound like I'm making a command. So we have Vancouver and Asheville and the Bay Area and the UK. Oh, and Minneapolis. There, I didn't know that. I'm in Minneapolis. Kira's in Minneapolis. So we're in the same place. Kelly's in Cambridge, Minnesota. And let's have you, once you're done doing that, tell us about, in the chat, one primary network that you're part of or working with. What's the network's name if it has one? What's its focus or its goal? And then we have India and Portugal, another UK. It's exciting to see. And then if you didn't hear me, a primary network you're part of or working with. Epic project. Which is taking a cool approach to anti-human trafficking from the demand side. Children in Nature, Social Enterprise Minneapolis, Childhood Vaccine Partnership, interesting. Oh, Ari, you're with Spencer, I take it. Cool. Thanks for inviting her, Spencer. Oh, Anthony. Interesting. Sounds like something we could benefit from in our community of practice. We're always struggling with that. Systems thinking training. Reform education system in the world. Dr. Daniel. Yeah, that's part, you're part of the NORAG network, right? I can't, I'm stop sharing for a second. Okay. Stefania is part of the Free University and online education. Cool. Yeah, great. Okay, last question. When you're done with that, what brings you here today? Excuse me. I have a tickle in my throat. Sorry about that. So what brings you here today? What are you looking to learn or discover or share this morning? If you could put that in the chat as well, that would be great. Curtis. I'm not sure that's not a white supremacist thing. But it is a thing I have a certain, with a certain focus I share in. So that was a criticism. Yeah, it's a neurosis. I agree. That's how I sort of characterize it for myself. Okay, so I see some general just learning and learning about social system map, the tool, and seeing what others are doing. Cool, that's great. So I think that I'm gonna hand it over to Laura now, and just I'll let Laura tell you about her background to the degree she feels like that's important and relevant, but I just want to say how much I have leaned on Laura in some very deep ways in this community in the last couple of years, and have really, really valued her, valued her mapping, but also just valued her presence and her soul and the kinds of support that I've personally gotten from her in doing this work in this community. And so I really love Laura for that and just for who she is. Okay, I'm shutting up.
Thanks. I don't know if you wanted also to share the slides of that quickly, and then maybe.
Oh, wait. You mean the slides about the social system mapping environment?
Yes, and then maybe the one with the intro so people can see that, but then maybe we can stop the slide sharing while I share. So it's
So are you? I forgot to do that one. Do you mind if I just whip through this slide? Okay, thanks. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so for those of you who have yet to make a social system map or really have any hands-on with how the technology fits together, this is important to know if you're making a map, but your network members don't need to know this. They'll experience one interface, but what you'll experience as a mapper is that basically we use two separate, totally separate online platforms for making a social system map. The one that sumApp gathers data. This is what I'm responsible for. My spouse and I developed this data gathering tool and continue to work to build it out for this specific purpose of making social system maps. And so sumApp is how you gather the data. It's designed to be user-friendly for your for your members and to be something that your members can just continually keep up to date, that you can change and iterate as your understanding of your network deepens and you realize you need to add new questions or change questions. You can do that in sumApp. So sumApp is the data gathering tool. It's basically a fancy survey for social system mapping. And Kumu is a data visualization tool. So Kumu takes the data that you gather and you can represent the data in various what's called graphs. Graphs are dots and lines. So you can see the relationships between the nodes and the nodes. So you get this anytime you're looking at a dot and line visualization, that's a graph. So Kumu represents or visualizes the data, and you can, as the mapper, you can design your views based on however you want, whatever it is you're trying to focus on in your data set, whatever you're trying to emphasize. You can make different views to tell different stories within your data. So sumApp gathers the data, Kumu visualizes the data. As the data is being gathered in sumApp, it's actually, there's a link. You can just feed the data as it's gathered right into Kumu live, so that if I go in and update my connections, a minute later, those connections are updated in Kumu in the map that everybody can see. Everybody meaning whoever you want and have given permission to see, not the whole world necessarily. And then once you have a Kumu map up and running, visualizing the data the way you want it to, you can, there's another link that you put back into sumApp. So there's a sumApp tab, a map tab, excuse me, there's a map tab within sumApp so that your members go in, they input their data, they go to the map tab, they see the map, they can go back, they can say, oh, I forgot to put that I'm connected to so-and-so. They can go back into the data gathering part. They see just one whole interface. They don't have to go from sumApp to Kumu to see the map. They don't even have to know it's two separate interfaces. But if you're building a map, you need to know that. So we start there by letting you know that. I'm going to stop sharing now. And now I'm going to hand it over to Laura, having made the introduction and then having to come back. So go for it, Laura. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thank you for explaining that, giving a bit of context also with the technology. Yeah, so my name is Laura. As Christine mentioned, I've been part of this community, I think now for about roughly 3 years, I guess. And I've also started joining an OnRamp session like this, and then many of the other community calls, and just had a personal interest to learn more about social system mapping, also the technical skills, and be able to apply that and contribute with that kind of skill set to networks that I'm a part of. So that was really my motivation for joining, and it's been a great overall learning experience to just connect with others in these sessions and other opportunities also on the Slack group, and yeah, keep learning and refining our practice together. And for today, I'm sharing a map that I've created for a network that I've been also part for a number of years called CircleWise. It's mainly working and located in Germany. And I'm part of the kind of a network steward group of that network. And in that capacity is also where I worked with other people on that level of stewardship and brought in the map as an initiative to show more of the connections and support learning and self-organization in that network. And I've also, since this year, I'm also a network weaver for Equalise, another European network focused more on sustainability and climate change. And I'm just in the process of possibly starting another mapping project with them. So let's see, maybe in a few months' time, I'll be able to share another map with them based on the work with them. So that's a bit of my context. And I'm definitely one of those people who's super passionate about networks from the very kind of strategic level to the very practical ways of how we can work together as humans to self-organize and collaborate and really affect the change we want. I think that's maybe good enough for introductions about me. And I also want to give you a little bit of context on CircleWise. It's not hugely relevant, but it does matter because in addition to what Christine shared about kind of the technical tools we use, social system mapping is also a social process or a social technology. It's a lot about the people, and it's also a lot about purpose. So how we apply social system mapping, how we think about it matters a lot. And also the purpose that networks gather around is a key pillar in setting up a map, from the very design to how you engage people to how you then set up the map and use the map. So I want to give you a little bit of context for that understanding. So CircleWise, as I said, is mostly German-based network. It started really out as more of an educational institute. So they're running a lot of programs and offerings for nature connection and community building. That's the main focus. And you can imagine doing lots of educational programs and courses that sometimes last several months to a year long or even 2-year-long programs. You start building a network quite naturally of people that just get connected to each other. So over years and years of doing that, it really grew into a network, and people started to meet up outside of the programs, build relationships, continue learning, share like how are they applying these different things, maybe initiate little projects. So all of that, grew much more into a network. And this is also where the kind of map and the stewardship group kind of came into place a few years ago to help create spaces and facilitate that process more. And there are a few hundred people that are part of the network. And I think currently on the map, we have about 150 people, and we have around 25 people maybe that are part of the steward group. So just to give you also a bit of a sense of scale in this. And the outreach to all the people that have done programs is definitely a few hundreds, but it's hard to know an exact number. And they're not all active on the map as well. So I think this is what I can share as a bit of context. And let me do screen share so I can show you a little bit more of the details around this. All right, so this is the website. It's in German, so it might not be so useful, but what I did want to show you here on the page is one of the things that I've set up, and this is so that the map that I'm going to show you is a private map, so it's only for members only accessible. So I'm going to show you a modified version where I've taken out images and names, so it's anonymous. And what we did put on the website for people to find is just a section that has some information on the map. So there's a little video that's created that walks people through the map. There's a bit of descriptive text about the map, and then also an overview of some of the core map views that just shows an image and a little description. So I just want to share that with you as an example. Because in the whole process of social system mapping, kind of sharing and teaching and guiding people to understand the map more, the kind of systemic thinking, and be able to use it for themselves is such a critical piece. So setting up this page on the website has been an important piece to just have this as kind of a reference for people that are maybe joining the network new or that have not been so engaged in the map to have at least an overview of how this map looks like, and kind of get a little walkthrough in the video. And and be able to learn. And also for, not for me or somebody else to have to do this, but to just have it set up on the website has been really helpful. So I just wanted to share that. It's definitely been a good practice for us. And I also wanted to share, because Christine talked about the kind of the interface on sumApp. So this is the interface there of the CircleWise network, and it has these different tabs. One which is general information where you can upload your photo. There's another one with the survey, so that has all the survey questions. Like many other survey tools, you can just kind of custom design your own questions and surveys here. And then there's a third tab, which is really critical. And I think one of the really great features of sumApp is that you can actually map the connections with people. So you basically have little tiles of all the people in the network with their pictures and little info, and you can indicate what kind of connection you have with them. So if you click on them, you can just select the type of relationship, and that gathers the information you then later need to actually visualize the connections between people. So I just wanted to show you that. And as Christine mentioned, there's another tab that's called Map, and that will bring you to the map. So that's the interface that also all the members in the network can use, and they each have their access link and can use that and navigate that. All right. So now we're going to actually go into the map. So this is one of the views of the map, the kind of landing view. It's a main directory. And I'm going to share with you a few things here, but I want to quickly, for people that are really new to how this looks like, just say that always on this left side, there's just general information that's there no matter what map view you're on. So this just, gives shares a little bit of context around CircleWise and the network. It has links to each one of those views. And it also gives a bit of information for people on navigation and using the map. So I've set that up again to be more self-guided for people to learn about the map. And this is something I can see here, and I can also hide it to just focus on the map. So as I said, what we have here is the directory view, so that the main intention is really for people to just see everybody who's part of the network, see who's there. So again, I've hid some of the information. You would, all of those gray circles, you would be able to see images and names of people. So you get the idea. And in green, I've just marked the organizations. So this map here is just focused on people. So all of the circles in whatever view we're going to look at, they're always people that are part of the network. And then it shows their relationships to different things. And in this case, it shows their connections to various other organizations. So while they're all part of the CircleWise network, they're actually linked to a huge amount of different organizations. So that was just really interesting for us to map and see the larger interconnectedness of people. And otherwise, this view is perfect to just kind of zoom around, browse around, and just explore who all is part of the network. And I've also created, let me just zoom in a little bit more. What I've also created here around people, you see these colored stripes, kind of flags they're called. And this relates also to the legend here. And it's just mapping out some core, let's say, roles or functions that people have in a network. So some people might be teachers. As I said, there's a strong education focus here. So some might be teachers, some might be supporters of events, some might be cooperation partners, some might be just participants. So here in green, for example, that is a flag that shows that people are participants, of courses. Some might be members of the steward circle, so that's here marked in red. So you get a sense. So this is a way to also not just find people, but also have a quick sense of how they're part or connected to the network. Some people are part through multiple roles, some just as participants of these educational programs. And
Laura, can I just,
yes.
just to be super clear in case anybody missed it, the gray dots are people, and in a normal context, they would have a picture of the people and they would have the name of the person. But
exactly,
because it's a private map, Laura has hidden those two features. So we're just looking at gray dots, but they're actually pretty faces. Just
Exactly. So people are asked to through the sumApp interface to share a profile picture, because it helps a lot. I mean, I think we all remember these events where you meet like, 50 people and you don't remember all the names, but if you see an image, it can really help you like recall that you've met before or seen that person. So for me, that's actually a really great feature to have that, and it feels much more human and visual also. So this is one of the views, as I said, the directory, and with different flags, it's also easy to find people in specific roles. And this is also something where I set up here in this drop-down menu. You can also just highlight, people in those different roles. So just, for example, the teachers or just the participants. So maybe I think that's all I want to share for this map as a kind of landing page. The other thing that I wanted to look at, because that's, as I said, it's such an interesting feature to be able to map the connections and relationships between people. So this kind of, I think Kumu has quite a nice language for it. They call it like a hairball. It's like this, this funny ball of like connections that looks quite complex and hard to make sense of maybe, but it actually is probably the closest kind of visual look at all of the relationships, which of course they're invisible, like there's no physical structure to relationship, but they exist between people. And this is one of the really beautiful things, to be able to make that more visual. And I've also put in some of the statistics here, so you can see there are 152 elements. So as I said, elements are the gray dots. So in this case, people. So we have 152 people that are currently part of the map. And this just shows all of the different relationships. And you can see that there's a quite strong web of relationships more in the kind of core. And then there's the periphery where people are less connected. I think all of the dots I can see have at least one or maybe even two connections to somebody else. Which again, I think also speaks to the nature of the network. People come in through events and courses, so they always know somebody. And this is, based on that, they're also invited to join us in the map. And then some people have a lot of connections and are really well connected. And the legend also describes the different levels of connections that we define that are, useful for our context. And here there's also a filter option. So for example, I could just select people that actually collaborate on a project. So you see, let me just zoom out a tiny little bit. So you see people that actually collaborate on a project, it's far less. There are a lot of people that have no project collaboration whatsoever. But here, what you see in the center, there are some people who are quite actively working, probably even on multiple projects. There's quite a few of those connections. So this gives also a very interesting view. And just to highlight what I've shared with the events and educational programs. So if I select people that connected through events, you see that probably makes up a majority of the existing connections. And this is also one of the things that kind of mutually enforces each other, like the events are a real space for people to network and connect. And then in the map, we can really see that reflected here, for example. Basically, I think pretty much every dot has some connection to somebody else based on participating in events together. So this reflects very much the kind of purpose of the network. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So that's the relationship view, one of the interesting ones we've created. Another one I wanted to share, which goes a little bit deeper into the context, is this one. So here, I've kind of combined two features that you can use in Kumu. So here at the top is different buttons you can press, and what they do is they create these colorful dots. So you see the ones in yellow and you see the ones in green, and the ones in green are in this case core educational programs that CircleWise offers. So for example, there's a program on a leadership training, there's a program on nature connection. So you see all the people that took the program, they're connected to that, in this case, green circle of that program. So it's a great way for people to find others that have participated in the same program, but maybe at another time. So that's just been an interesting view since, so much of the work is focused on education. We're mapping here the educational programs. And then also in yellow, we're mapping interests of people. So we've identified through a kind of participatory process a few kind of core interests that are most relevant for our network, and we're mapping them. So again, we can see the different interests and how people are connected to that. So, and maybe I'll pick one here and also show you that you can kind of, that will take a while. So I've picked again the nature education program as one of the programs, and I've hit here a focus option on Kumu, which actually means like everything else is kind of removed from the view, and I just see focus, like all the people that are connected to this program. So this way, with the educational programs, but also with the interests, would be a way to really kind of sort through a bit of the complexity in a network and be able to just zoom in and focus on one of those. So I just wanted to highlight that as a functionality of the map. And besides interest, we've also mapped the kind of work areas that people have. So this creates another, layer of colorful dots and more lines for people that are connected to. It will take a second to load, but you will be able to see that. So we wanted to create all of these different clusters, basically, and these different colors for people to be able to not just connect randomly, but actually find somebody that shares an interest, find somebody that does work in a similar area, or find somebody that has been a participant in the same educational program. So these are just some ways you could, design them in a different way for your network, but find some options where people can find commonality and be able to connect through that, or maybe find difference, find somebody with an interest that's different, or having done a program that's different. So that's something that's really well mapped through this. And then the other thing that we've mapped is part of the network is really finding ways that we can support each other. So how people can support each other. And that's also, again, it's a lot focused on learning. It could be more of a kind of buddy learning relationship. It could be more coaching or consulting or mentoring. So these are kind of different levels of support that we've identified that are relevant. And we've created here basically different names for those. And here's a filter option. So I can look, for example, if I'm interested to have like a buddy that I can learn with, I can select that here in the filter option. It will just highlight all the people that they've selected. They're willing to be a buddy for somebody. And then, I could go further around a shared interest or around a specific work area to focus on that and to find a buddy, that has maybe done the same educational program or that has maybe a shared interest, and then be able to, connect to that person, reach out to them, and hopefully self-organize to have, for example, a buddy relationship, or maybe get some coaching for a project that I'm doing with somebody that has a specific work area, same like me. So yeah, just to give you a few ideas here of why we created this view and how we're using it.
Laura, can I interject one thing?
Yes.
Just because you're anonymizing your people, you're not showing what's in the side panel, but I think it would help people who aren't familiar with a map to just know what's in the side panel. So you could either explain it or share your tab.
Yes, let me find myself and share that.
The point being, it's not just the dots that we can see each other in the lines. We can actually see a lot more about each individual.
Yeah, exactly. So on the left side panel, I've just brought that back. There's general information, but if you actually click, I didn't. Now I need to find myself here. Yeah, so on the left side, there's always, where am I? This is definitely much harder to do it with gray dots, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because usually, it really helps to see. Click on that. Where does it show up?
Maybe, are you not in this particular view? Have you not answered that particular question in your?
No, I am for sure.
You will see, I'll just say this, as if you do a search in that upper search bar and somebody has been filtered out of a view, their name will still show up in the search bar, but they won't be on the map. So that's a common thing
No,
that
I'm definitely there.
in this view.
Yes. Well, I mean, let me clear the filter. Maybe you're right. Maybe this was because of the filtering. Let me try again.
There, now it's refreshing and putting all the dots back on.
Exactly. So this is, yeah, this will take a moment, but hopefully I'll be able to show you now.
This is why we often, if you'll notice, Laura had at the top of her browser, she had all her views already chosen.
Yes.
That's because if you navigate through the actual map, it takes, sometimes there's enough of a time lag that we spend a lot of time just watching the map refresh, which isn't in anybody's best interest. But if you click in the search, Laura, I just want to see one thing. So
yes.
if you see that little blue, there's that little blue line above at the very top. Just that's saying it's indexing. That's the indexing progress, and it looks like it's already indexed, so it should be finding you now. Yeah, if you're still on that, and it should. Sometimes we set up our maps in ways that give conflicting instructions, but it should be just zooming in on Laura right now because she's selected.
Yeah, I don't know if that's again
maybe
like
it's
how fast it's loading. Maybe let me try to see that in another view.
Yeah, you know what I think, because you don't have the network button, the fourth button selected, which might be.
No, I think that, let me see.
Yeah. See, right now it says it's re-indexing the project so that blue line isn't there yet, which means it doesn't know who all is in there yet.
Okay, here we go. Okay, now I can show you.
Yay!
So it zoomed in on me, and there's usually in the gray circle, you would also see the image. And then on the left side, you actually, so whatever you decide as your survey questions and what people fill out will basically create their profile information. And that's always, so that's the data that sumApp collects, and that's always accessible on all of the map views. By just clicking on, whoever the person is. So here we can see me and, the image, and you'll see all my responses, contact information, like all of the things we're gathering. It's a lot about competences, what we work, where we're based, about us, work, professional background, and also some other things around, skills and things that are interesting, which is actually also all about this view I'm going to share in a moment here. And some of them are kind of like where we just have options to select from the survey, and some are just kind of open text answers. So it might be really interesting to read, people's profiles here. So that for me and for any person, this profile information kind of always shows up in this kind of left side of things. And then if I kind of go out of, being zoomed into my little dot here, then I just have the general information about the map again. So that's the setup here.
Thank
so I'm
you.
just gonna, yeah, I think that's helpful. Thanks for putting that in, Christine. And I'm just gonna zoom out again here and share just briefly about this view. So this is, I think, one view that's really relevant for us, and it might be quite applicable for many other networks. And it's about sharing skills. So we have also, here, we have different skills. Again, these are the colorful dots, and we've decided to cluster skills in areas. So we have, for example, what I've selected here are project and admin skills. We also have more kind of handicraft skills. We have skills related to events, social skills, skills related to nature, and skills related to kind of more body and movement type things. So these were relevant categories for us. And it just makes for kind of shorter lists and better options for searching to just have them clustered. And yeah, and this way you can kind of, zoom around and see the clusters. And again, we also have the filter option. So when I go to project and admin, you see like a full list of each of the individual skills related to project management, fundraising, teamwork, leadership, all kinds of things that we have there. And again, I could, let's say, for example, select website design and just see the people that have that skill. So yeah, this is a great way to find people with certain skills if we're doing an event or if we're running a project or any kind of other initiatives within the network. And there might be people with certain skills that we need that we don't know. But this view really helps us, find people with the right skills, hopefully kind of narrow it down to just a few people. So then it's easy enough to reach out on the network communication platform that we have and just like, send them a message, be like, hey, I saw you have that skill, would really love your support, and give a bit of framing on whatever it is that anybody is doing. And again, ideally, this is also something that can be really used by any network member to self-organize with the work that they're doing, which might be directly part of the network. It might also be that they're working on something else, but they would appreciate collaborating with somebody that's also part of the network and has a shared understanding of maybe values or collaboration skills. Yeah. So that's this view. Let me just check what else I had open here. Yeah, I think quickly I'll share about this last one, and then I would love to open it up for questions here. So this is one I just wanted to share, and one of the interesting features for me here is that I created a button here where I can actually see just the people that are network stewards in this network stewards group, which I think is a relevant piece of information because that group is for now by invitation only. And some people in the network are more aware of it or heard about it, and some don't necessarily have any idea. And in order to have some level of transparency still, this is also visible here in the map, so people can actually find out who's part of it, can contact them. So yeah, it's a bit of a way to kind of also have that here in the map, and also what we've been mapping here are, so a lot of these network stewards are also some of the main people doing projects, like smaller projects within the network. So here with this button, we've also, we show the projects that people are doing. So you'll be able to see, let me just remove this one. So now all the green circles you can see are projects, all the gray ones are people. And yeah, this gives a good overview of the different projects that are happening. Again, this is also a way of to really track the collaboration and the self-organization that's happening in the network. If there are new projects that come up, we can just adjust that in the survey. If some projects are maybe over, we might choose to keep it on the map just for a reference, more as an archive. And we can see like who's involved in what project. We can just see the people. Again, we could just select one project and focus on it even further to just see, in this case, 6 people that are part of this project, which is about coaching and consulting. So yeah, that's, I think, another interesting view here to use. Yeah, and with that, I think I'll stop screen sharing for now, just to see your faces and open it up for questions. And if there's a question specifically to the map, I'm also happy to maybe share some more.
Laura, I just want to address, there's one that's in the chat already.
Yes.
That I would like to address, and which is so the question is, Maria's, if data entries may be repeatable among different individuals filling out the survey to populate the map, for example, organization, does the survey clean the data or is it smart enough to make connections? So what you're getting at is with the organizations, if somebody puts in the Rockefeller Foundation versus Rockefeller, that is a very common question. And so I want to handle, so if there is, if the list is standardized, like you've picked, this 100 organizations and you've put them in as standardized, that's the best way to make sure that 2 different people are, like if 2 people say they're attached to the Rockefeller Foundation, but they use different wording, you're going to have 2 different nodes for the Rockefeller Foundation. Now, there's, in the case of the Rockefeller Foundation, in the case of actual organizations, you can use a feature that we call a dual elements feature, which enables you to make organizations behave like B nodes as well. And so you can then, you can include more organizations, but have standardized language of them. And there's just a lot more functionality that you can get at. But the simple the simple answer is, if it's not in a checkbox list or a radio list, you're opening yourself up to having, like, for example, we have lots of clients who will say, what city are you in? And some people will put MPLS, and some people will put Minneapolis all the way, and some people will put a comma in the state. And occasionally what we'll do in those cases is just go in and visually clean it up. But sumApp doesn't know how to, it doesn't have the artificial intelligence built in to figure out, these are states, I'm going to standardize, these are cities, standardize, or organizations. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you've mostly covered that really well, Christine. And I can just quickly share. So with the CircleWise map, as I said, it's just using people as elements. It's not using the dual element, as Christine said, to also highlight organizations, because the network is based on people, and people are part of the network through their individual humanness more than through their connection to an organization. But it's relevant. So we have the directory view where that's visible, but this is not the main thing. I know with the other network that I work, members are organizations. Like an individual actually can't even be a member of the network. So in this case, it would either mean just mapping the organizations, or actually, which I'm more leaning towards, actually having the dual elements. So to show the people and organizations. So depending a bit on the context, what makes most sense. And with the specific one on data cleanup, so for our case in the directory review with the organizations, we also had the sense that some people spelled the organization this or that way. So what I decided to do is also just maybe, twice a year or something, just look through and clean up a little bit. And with the admin access, I can actually just even enter profiles of people and make these little adjustments. So I don't even need to contact them just because they've spelled something differently. So it does take some manual work, but it is possible. And I, at least with our map, which I said, it's 150 people, so it's not a crazy huge map. It's been doable enough, that there's not too many of those kind of things happening. So it's not a huge job of cleaning up. Yes. So the other question that I see here, how have those in the map used the map? Yeah, it's a great question. As I said, one thing is it's definitely been really important to share and kind of teach about the map. For some people, they're kind of maybe more techie, exploratory people. They kind of, just try things out themselves. But for a lot, at least in our network, there was like a barrier towards learning about it and using it. So we've incorporated it both in online and also in-person events to share the map, to give people a guide through it. So that's been really helpful. And how people use it, I would say, is a lot for making connections. And again, that might mean they want to connect to certain people with certain interests, find a buddy, get support, find somebody in their local area. I didn't show you, but there's also a geographic view. Again, that people give their address, that's more private information, but there is a geographic view, so people might want to reach out to others, close by. So that's, I think, a main function, whatever the kind of filter or perspective is, but for people to make new connections. That's, I think, a main use of the map. And then the second one is, I guess, related more either towards learning, education events, or towards kind of collaborating on projects. So for people, to find out what projects exist, who's working, to maybe find people with skills that they need for a project. So I think this is another, or for events. So also, the network core kind of hosts event, but also other people might do events, and find people to support with that and collaborate on. I would say that's some of the main ways people used it. And and I think it's definitely something like the network is at a size where there's nobody that knows everybody on that level of detail. So it's really like our collective brain and platform to have that kind of information stored, because it goes beyond the kind of heads of any individual at this point.
Laura, I would like, if you don't mind, I would like to answer the next question, which is this a map of a system?
Yes.
Is the map of a system. So Anthony, from a systems thinking, Donella Meadows kind of causal loop, cause and effect perspective, no, it's not. It could be, you could, it's possible. Generally, most of our users aren't going to that level yet, but you could in Kumu have different, not views, but different actual, it's called a map in a project that has the causal loops. and then you could have the elements of the causal loops in your social system, in your sumApp survey. But so it usually there isn't that formality of a causal loop thing, but, or, you know, the cause and effect diagrams. But if you think about any, you know, a family is a system, any network is a system. And in a social system map, we are not necessarily approaching it from a systems thinking perspective, but we are surfacing the system's components by looking at what are the differences in the system, what are the similarities in the system, what are the different perspectives, so that we can actually be, you know, like the, you know, the elephant picture, we're saying who's got the trunk, who's got the tail, who's got the legs, who's got the ears, who's got the tusks. We're asking that in the survey. So we're mapping the actual players in the system and their relationship to the various dimensionalities in the system and how that can change over time. So as a social system, it's, you know, I'm perfectly comfortable saying, yeah, we're mapping, it's a system, and it's also representative of the broader systems that we're trying to change. So for instance, trying to just find like with children in nature, you know, the broader system is like there's a network around that, but then more broadly, there are children, there are teachers, there are parks, there are you know, school administrators. There are all kinds of components of the broader system that we're trying to shift how they help children, you know, how they support children in nature. And so we can look at our map and say, do we have all those perspectives present? Do we have representatives from each of these components? And are we understanding the system, whatever, I'm wishing I had picked a different example because my mind isn't going to good specifics, but you know, like in the case of Laura's, it's about learning, and so there are teachers and there are students and there are event supporters. So those are functional elements of the system. So there's a lot of ways that the system is absolutely present in the map, and that's part of when we're talking about helping people understand systems, is helping them think about those things, not just how do we get everybody to show up and do everything? You know, how do we drive engagement, which is a very generic term. But if we're actually attending to the different perspectives and motivations and desires and needs that people have and things that they can offer, then we're thinking about our network more systemically and we're understanding it from a systems perspective. So that's got a little long-winded, but that's my answer to that question.
Maybe I'll add just to complement, you know, what you said, Christine. So I would say, as you said perfectly well, we're really mapping the social system, the people, the organizations, which is also a system. It might, but it's a bit different than maybe some other systems map that you create. So the main focus also with the whole setup with sumApp is to have the people there, to have the profile pictures, to have the relationships. So all of that is something that's there, and it makes it very human. I think it makes it very practical as a network leader, as a network coordinator, as you're working with people to really use it. Yes, maybe you're trying to affect system change, but how does that happen? It happens through people. And even if that's just a small section of the larger system that you're trying to change, you still need those people as kind of the entryways and the leverage points and the players to actually do or change whatever you're trying to do. So I think this is the piece. And if you or the network that you're working with has capacity or interest in maybe, let's say, more classical system thinking, from my perspective, I would say it's very much complementary, and you could have a more systems causal broad map, and you could have the more social system map, and you could really find ways to work with both in a quite powerful way. So that's I think what I can add to this question.
Yeah. So next, so Kelly's, let's see, Spencer's jumping, Kelly's jumping. Dr. Daniel, there are a galaxy of people with different interests in the network, but can you get connected without their acceptance? I'm just going to go with that because we've just got a couple minutes left. Is that okay, Laura?
Yeah.
So the tool itself is not connecting you in one way or another. The tool is asking you to indicate your own relationships. And so it's not like in Facebook where now we click a button and we're connected. You have to reach out in a venue where you, like, if their LinkedIn connections are there, you can reach out on LinkedIn, or if their email is there, or if their Slack handle. But it doesn't, the tools are not doing the relationship. They're helping you understand, and they're reflecting the relationships, and they're helping you search for relationships. But there's still that human element of having to do the reach out. And if people don't provide in their profile, if they don't provide a way of doing that, then you might need to find somebody else in the network who will introduce you, or you might need to find another way. But so it's not actually literally connecting people in that. But then I would say Facebook isn't literally connecting people either. It's just enabling them to shout at each other in a tool. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Maria's question, I don't know if that is, maybe we can do that quickly. Like you could use sumApp and focus on initiatives or organizations, and have the circles represent an organization or an initiative. That's very much possible in the setup. That will also change the kind of questions that you ask, right? So that's very much possible. You will still need people in those organizations to actually have the link and fill in the information or indicate the connections or use the map, right? So if you're just doing a conceptual map of initiatives without actually involving them, you could just go with Kumu. So you're just using whatever your knowledge you have and whatever you find online on the web, and you could just put that in on Kumu. If you're trying to really engage with the people and get information from them, you can use sumApp, and you can also do that just focusing on organizations as Circle, or people, or both, depending on what's most relevant.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Laura. Great. So we're just on time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, just so that everybody has a minute before their next meeting. So we're going to go ahead and do our goodbye ritual, which is, if you haven't done this before, it's very simple. Just everybody unmutes. Once we're all unmuted, I will count down 3, 2, 1. When I get to 1, we're all at the same time together, just going to give each other our blessings and our greetings to go on with your day with some love and hopefully good energy. So let's all unmute. We're all done. Okay. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Very nice meeting everyone.
Thank
you so much.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.